In this video, we're going to take a closer look at financial management in ShareDo. So ShareDo contains extensive finance functionality to enable your case management system to be the single application for your case managers. So no need for the case handlers to access external systems to manage things like payments and fees and budgets and financial transactions. So think of ShareDo functionality in terms of a configurable set of chart of accounts that's maintained for each case or specific case container type. The structure acts as both a ledger and into which transactions are posted, together with the basis for the maintenance of budgets. So we're going to be looking at finance management from two aspects, one from a configurable feature aspect and then from an end user, so how they interact with the features that you configure. So let's jump across to ShareDo and take a closer look at the configuration. So inside of our modeling environment, we can see that we've got a whole category of finance features, and that covers everything from rates configuration to authority limits to currencies, so ShareDo supports multiple currency, to things like debt configurations for tranches and payment plans. We've got invoice payment plans for things like payment expectations and settlements. We've got fee structures, so there's a comprehensive fee structure template system within inside of ShareDo to manage all of your different fees. We've got goods and services configuration, payment requests for disbursements. We've got units of measure, so we can start to tie those together into our budgets. We've got things like offers, we've got fee structures, we've got budgets, and we've got our core element, which is our ledger configuration, which is our chart of accounts. We've also got things like delivery cost structures, tax rates, and invoices to manage the collection life cycle of our financial transactions. So we're going to jump into a couple of the key ones really around the chart of accounts, where we configure all of our specific ledgers, and then also our budgets. So we can configure lots of different budget types around awards and disbursements and costs, and we're reusing all of the configuration from our chart of accounts. So let's take a closer look at that. So in our chart of accounts, it enables us to configure structures around our ledgers. So things like a hierarchy of types, categories, and account codes. And we can configure as many of those as we like. In here as well, once we've managed those chart of accounts, we can also associate them to specific work type configurations. So I can say, hey, I manage costs in this kind of cost structure, and this is applicable to these work types. So in our chart of accounts, it just enables us to create the actual account transactions or the ledger items that I'm going to be posting into. So we can see here, we've created our chart of accounts at the lowest level, and then we're grouping that up through our structure. We can also apply things like display rules to these, so I can start striping them based on maybe my case types or particular jurisdictions where I want to stripe the accounts, or what we do is apply what we call display rules to them. So we can manage all of our account structures, and we can also manage the things around what they're applicable to. So all of my different other financial work items, so things like offers and payment requests and disbursements and invoices, we can then start to align all these chart of accounts to light them up in terms of configuration. And then what we'll do is we'll take these things and we'll configure those. We'll reuse the chart of accounts where we can go and configure patterns or groups of those around what we call budgets. So we can see on here, we've got a couple of different budgets, things that we're using across different transaction types. So you can see recoveries and disputes. And if we take a closer look at these, what we're doing is we're effectively configuring the behavior. So we're saying, what are the categories? What are the chart of accounts grouping? What's the behavior around these? What's the display columns? So things like when we're collecting across these things, I might want to roll up from my fees or roll up from my time that I capture in terms of if I'm tracking costs and activities. So through the budgets, we can configure behaviors and the way it looks and feels and the way that the columns behave. We can do things like drawdown for threshold alerting. So things like if I've got a cost budget that I'm tracking against and my disbursements and my time are all rolling up into my budget, and that's eroding the actual estimate, I need some threshold alerting, which we can configure in that as well. So inside of ShareDo, again, no code, configuration, lots of configuration around these items. So what we're doing is configuring them and then lighting them up and specializing them across our work type structures. So if we just jump quickly into a case, and we can see from a front end user perspective some of those features that we've just configured against that work type. So if we just jump across to some pages, so when we're designing our portals, we always use that every page should have a purpose. So page for a purpose when we're designing. So if we come down into here and look at our budgets, what you can see is across the top, you can configure your menus. So you can say, hey, I'm going to manage my estimates or my awards. And we've got lots of functionality around that. So we've got insights. So things like how are these things changing over time? How we can control what we call snapshotting. So we can take point in time positioning on all of our budgets and all of our, effectively our ledgers. So we can see that history over time. If we edit one of these things, so in the budgets that we just showed in configuration, we can see all of the display rules. So things like what our position is, what the other position is, whether I'm snapshotting, whether I go through a life cycle, whether I'm eroding the actual estimate as we roll up our costs and disbursements. We can do things like switch between our budgets. So if I'm looking at awards or reserves or things like that, to costs. So you can see on this work type, we've got a number of budgets that have been configured, and I can switch between them. I can do things like take snapshots, so I can do point in time recording, so that might be pre a document and then post a document or across a different life cycle. We take a look at a couple of different views as well. We've got roll-ups around things like we support settlements and settlement agreements and payment plans, and there's all different visualizations that are available out the box in ShareDo to manage and to present that data, so we can capture those. If we just jump down into our disbursements view, this is going to list all the disbursements that we're currently capturing, and that might be on the back of an interaction. So things like, hey, I've just requested a particular document or a medical report or an expert, and we know that there's a disbursement that we write to our sheet, to our ledger effectively. And then in here there's a whole bunch of particular specific work items where we manage the life cycles, and that can be anything from an offer, it can be an invoice, it can be a payment, it can be a settlement receipt, a payment plan. There's lots of work items that form part of the financial management framework that facilitators manage those life cycles. The final piece in here that we're gonna look at is around things like time recording. Again, globally we can switch that on, we can switch that off, but you can see at a matter level, this is all the time that I'm capturing against this particular matter. We can do things like radars and time targets. We can also integrate seamlessly with back-end practice management systems to do two-way synchronization. So your PMS might handle billing, and we play nicely within that ecosystem, and ShareDo's posting all of that content, so your case handlers don't have to go to an external system, and potentially when that's been billed by your PMS, it can post back the updates to ShareDo and present things like work in progress and WIP balances and the like. So you can see all of that different functionality inside of ShareDo. The final bit on here is around fees. So we can manage fee structures. You might manage that as part of your intake process where you're negotiating a particular fee structure. And again, in the financial feature framework, it enables you to create lots of different fee templates for different types of work, fixed fee, hourly rates, tiered, everything else that we support out of the box. So that's at a matter level. And then if we just jump back finally at our workbench level, we can roll all of that information up. So again, this is your aggregated view of the world. So this will show you all the things that you're working on. And again, in pages here, we can do things like show me all of the payments that are going through, show me all of my financials, whether that's accounts receivables, accounts payables, all the payment requests that are currently in progress. And we provide lots of little insights and radars on that. It also gives us the opportunity in here to manage all of the things like our suppliers and all of the rating and the rates and charges associated with those suppliers, and also manage all of our supply chain requests for expert instructions and the like. We also pump out this data into our data warehouse so you can do further analysis, trend reporting and analytics. We've taken a quick view at financial features within ShareDo. This is a big topic and we can drill into these in a subsequent series. In the next video in this series, we're going to be taking a closer look at client intake and onboarding.